Jeff Stanek here with Figured Out Baseball. I've got some Thursday thoughts for you I'd like to share today. I want to talk to you about competing in practice, making competition fun, and the difference between competing and winning. So first, to talk about competition in practice. I think it's so important to keep practice fun and competitive, and there is a way to do both. I think that the more you have kids do at practice, the more fun they're going to have. The more fun they have, the more excited they are to come to practice, and frankly, the more they're going to get out of it. I referenced recently a practice that I went to where I watched a young team practicing, and there was one coach throwing batting practice to one player at a time. The rest of the players were standing around doing nothing. I promise you those kids in the field weren't having fun. It's part of your job as a coach is to keep practice fun, particularly the younger the age, the more they need to have fun. But even high schoolers want to have fun at practice. How do you have fun at practice? A lot of reps, a lot of game speed things happening, and a lot of game type of reps happening. Okay? So if you're hitting, for example, one kid hitting, everyone else standing around, not much fun for anybody. But if you change that around and have a coach throwing a coach pitch scrimmage, now you can have a lot of fun and a lot of competition. So just say a coach is pitching to hitters. You don't have to throw from 45 feet if you're in Little League. You don't have to throw from 60 feet if you're coaching at an older team. You can have the coach throwing for maybe 2/3 of the normal distance. The coach can even be sitting and flipping overhand to have more accurate throws. And to make the balls, this doesn't need to be like a super competitive BP where you're getting swings and misses. This is the type of BP where you want people to put the ball in play. Okay, a kid's hitting live, a coach is pitching, coach throws the ball, the kid hits it, the defense plays it out live. You can start with runners on base, or you can just have players run naturally, but this gives you a ton of game reps. Kids have a ton of fun doing this. They're going to be tired at the end of the practice, or at the end of that segment if that's part of your practice. That's one thing you can do. Other things you can do is just encourage competition in defensive type drills. You can do knockout for infielders and outfielders, like a basketball type of knockout, where you have infielders that are catching ground balls, for example. If you make the play clean, you stay in and you go to the back of the line and you get another rep. If you make an error, then you are out for that particular round. And again, you don't need to have 10 infielders all in one line together, so at the end of it, there are 2 guys catching ground balls and 8 kids sitting around, again, doing nothing. You can have some people at third base, some at short, some at second, some at first. If you want to have live throws, that's fine too. You can still do this with a lot of balls being hit at one time and a lot of people fielding ground balls live. You could have, for example, the third baseman. Maybe you have a couple third basemen there and they're playing their own little game of knockout. They've got to catch the ground ball and throw it to first base to complete the play. You can still have another fungo going to second and short. They just don't have to throw to first. They just catch the ball and they throw it back into the coach. The first baseman can work on their picks, can work on their footwork around the bag, can work on their stretching, things that they need to work on. Okay, they can get game-like reps doing this. So you can play little games of knockout doing that and then move the live player from the third baseman to the shortstop, for example. You can have outfielders doing the same type of thing with fly balls, with ground balls. Those are ways to just encourage some competition. Some other fun things at practice you can do are just having kids do things that they enjoy doing. Kids like to hit and they like to run, but they also like to do things like get dirty. Don't be afraid to have segments of practice where you let guys dive. If you got to take them into the outfield, into the soft grass, even if they're infielders, that's fine. Let them practice making some diving plays there. Let outfielders practice making diving plays. If you have young kids and you're worried about them getting hurt, I can think back to the Clemson baseball camps. I used to work as a young college coach. Jack Leggett ran these unbelievable camps. They'd be 5 days long, all day. You'd have kids from like 9 years old through high school seniors that would stay overnight, hundreds and hundreds of kids at each camp. Just amazing. I used to work the outfield segments there, and we'd have our young outfielders start out on their knees in the grass. You'd flip them a little, like a kind of a lazy pop-up, like a little high line drive, whatever you want to call it, just out of their reach, so they would practice from their knees diving into the grass and making a two-handed diving catch for a young kid. Then you'd progress. They'd be in like a frog type stance where they'd be able to project a little bit with their legs and dive a little bit further. But just things like that, like kids love it. Kids love getting dirty. They love diving in the grass. They love having fun like that. And when you incorporate these types of things into your practice, you make your practice fun, and sort of in an exciting and non-painstaking kind of way, you're teaching your kids the fundamentals of the game. Because by doing all these things, you're teaching kids to defensively that defense can be fun. If you're working on these types of defensive drills, you're also teaching them to catch and throw the ball, which is the basics of playing defense, no matter where you are, no matter what position you play. You're also teaching them
at the plate, if you're doing like a coach pitch type of scrimmage, you're teaching live game reps on the bases. You have a lot of coaching moments there, and you can spread coaches around the field, some in the outfield, some in the infield, some talking to base runners, some talking to defensive players, depending how many coaches you have, where there can be a lot of very teachable moments and a lot of fun. And the more game-like reps you allow your kids to get at practice, the more fun they're going to have, and the more they're going to be prepared without you having to put pressure on them. Going back to this youth practice that I watched recently, this same friend, their season just ended this past weekend, and this team, I don't know how many teams there are in the league, but they made it to the championship game. And my buddy was calling it the Intergalactic Championship because the coach was putting so much emphasis on this game. He's saying to a group of 6 through 9-year-olds, guys, this is what you've worked all season for. This is the big one. We've got to have a great game this weekend. We got to play great baseball. And it's like, dude, these are young kids. They're not there for that. They're not there. I mean, of course, they're going to celebrate if they win the championship. But if they don't win, their first question to their mom and dad is going to be, can we go get ice cream? And the answer should be yes at that age. Let the kids have fun. It doesn't need to be all about winning. And by doing these things at practice, another thing that you're doing is teaching kids to compete. If you're doing things like knockout, if you're doing like these coach pitch type scrimmages where they get rewarded. If they get a hit, they keep hitting. If they get out maybe a couple times in a row, they've got to go out to the field. If they make a couple good plays on defense in a row, they come back in and hit, or they're the next person to come hit. Whatever it is, if you have these sort of fun competitions at practice, you're teaching kids to compete, which again means from pitch to pitch, from play to play, you're giving everything you've got. You're holding nothing back. You're doing your absolute best from play to play. And at the end of the day, typically, at the end of the game, if you have competed all throughout the game, you're going to win a lot more than you're going to lose. Or if you're a bad team, maybe you'll win more than people would expect you to win. That's teams that play above expectation and above maybe their talent level. That's how they do it, is by being very competitive teams and being good at fundamental stuff, which all these things are teaching. It doesn't need to be about winning at the end of the day, particularly for younger kids. The older that you get, I think every age group that you kind of move up, the emphasis does, and rightfully so, shift more to winning. Again, I like to win as much as anybody, especially at a varsity level or a college level. It's got to be about winning at the end, but you still have to figure out a way at practice to make practice fun and competitive, so that when game day comes, people aren't tight, people are loose, your kids are loose, and they're ready to make plays because they've done it at practice before. They've done it so many times. They have so many good reps from practice, and they're used to competing with everything that they're doing at practice. Now they're ready to compete in a game, and chances are they're going to play their best. Whereas if you don't teach competition at practice, that's when kids are going to get tight and underperform in a game, and those are teams that underperform. That's typically what happens. This is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. Some Thursday thoughts for you. Shout out to Jack Leggett for the amazing Clemson camps back in the day. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week.